Okay, thank you. Senator Marshall.
Right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Lawrence, you're a living, breathing miracle. And we want you to know that we want you to see your son graduate from high school. We want to see you have grandchildren someday as well. And I remember my first patient, OB patient, with cystic fibrosis. I mean, there was once upon a time no cystic fibrosis patients would think about conceiving, and it was certainly just an incredibly tough pregnancy if they did. So in many ways, the innovation is working because of these innovative drugs as well. What does your doctor say about your future? What does your future look like?
Thank you for the question, Ranking Member Marshall. There have been so many medical advances, especially with the highly effective modulators, but they are not a cure, and they do not prevent infection. They have offered a level of stability, which has been really nice.
Is that the gene therapies, the modulators?
No, the highly effective modulators, as in like Trikafta, which I can explain more, but it would take me a long time.
That's okay.
And so it stabilizes the experience. For many patients, it raises pulmonary function tests and decreases infection. I have been in clinical trials for every generation of these modulators, and it has made a big difference, but it is not stopping me from getting infections. That is my biggest threat, and also like the infection breeds pneumonia, breeds hemoptysis, and it's just this vicious cycle. So that is my biggest threat by far. And if I may, Ranking Chairman Markey, I just wanted to add to my answer to your question about new antibiotics. There's also a timing factor, and while I have very good access to health care and affordable insurance, in order for them to cover a new antibiotic, they make it extremely hard, and there are hoops that need to be jumped through, and cultures take days to come back, while my infection is rapidly progressing to pneumonia and other.
Is it like a prior authorization issue that your doctors have to go through?
With some of the newer antibiotics, you have to submit a culture, you have to prove that all the antibiotics are resistant, you have to test it to see if you're... Right. It's this whole process that requires often inpatient hospital stays. So they definitely do not make it easy to access the newer antibiotics.
Thank you. Dr. Boucher, I'm going to get a free medical consult from you here. Most of your patients you see are probably people that survive organ transplants, that they've taken cancer therapy recently, and then we lose them to an infection. What would the message of hope you give to a cystic fibrosis patient like Ms. Lawrence? What do you need to be successful so she can see her grandchild?
Yeah, thank you for the question. It's a huge privilege to take care of patients before and after transplants and after life-saving chemotherapy and with cystic fibrosis. What we physicians and all clinicians need is we need tools in our toolbox, right? We need ways to prevent infection, and we need drugs to treat those infections which still happen. Yeah. So, and it's not just one, as was pointed out earlier. We need a pipeline that is robust and renewable because we know resistance will march on. And so really finding a solution to that, that's the idea of this subscription model, is a way to focus on value, not volume of antibiotics, to use them well through stewardship, but to have them be developed and delivered to our patients in ways that are predictable and reproducible, so that those drugs that the government invests in will be on the shelf in my pharmacy when a patient has a life-threatening infection, not requiring a week-long prior approval, but on the shelf in the pharmacy in Boston for the patient.
Got it. Dr. Boucher, not many people have watched somebody die. What's it like to watch your patients die because you don't have the right antibiotic? You know, it starts off as a kidney infection. It starts off with a pneumonia. What's it like to watch them die and not have the antibiotic that you need?
Well, I'll just start by saying I chose the profession of infectious diseases 30 years ago to cure patients, right? Antibiotics, as Senator Markey said at the open, are curative, life-saving drugs. So I came into this field to cure people of infections and send them home to live their lives, to enjoy the transplant, that precious gift that they get. So coming to the point where I've had the sad duty to sit with a lady who lived through rounds of chemotherapy for her leukemia, who had an infection for which we had no therapy, and to watch her go from sitting in the chair to sicker and dead in a number of days is beyond heartbreaking. It's a privilege to care for patients at that time in their life, but it's absolutely heartbreaking and not the reason that I went into medicine or so many others go into medicine.
Yeah, thank you. Dr. Apley, speak a little bit about what agriculture, protein production, what we've done to decrease the use of antibiotics and to address these issues, and specifically talk a little bit about how the 2017 law has impacted your world.
Thank you, Senator Marshall. If you go back to 2017 and look at the FDA sales data for antibiotics following that, and 2017 was the start of the transition to all medically important antibiotics used in feed to the veterinary feed directive and any used in water to under veterinary control. And the next year we saw, for example, tetracycline use drop by around a third as the veterinarians took control of that and had discussions with their clients based on the stewardship principles. You know, the last time a new antibiotic group was approved that we use in food animals was 1978, that a new group was approved. So we are using tried and true older compound groups. We get new members of them. Also, if you look at our veterinary organizations, we ascribe to the AVMA stewardship definition and the ways we go through to look at those. The other thing that just happened July 1 of 2023 was that all of our antimicrobials now that were previously over the counter have gone under veterinary control. So veterinarians are involved in all decisions. And we have some very frank and candid discussions about what we should and shouldn't be doing and how we address issues of prevention control, animal movement, et cetera, biosecurity to decrease the need.
That's great. And by the way, we have some agriculture initiatives with food supplements, feed supplements that would also decrease a lot of those bacteria as well. Ms. Miller, I'm going to finish up with you several questions here as well. Big picture, how many failures does your company have before they get one across the finish line?
Well, I mean, in this space, you probably have a 1% chance of getting a product from initial idea conception to approval. It's a pretty high failure rate when it comes to development, and a pretty costly one.
Yeah. When I used to help run a hospital, and you try to keep your formulary tight from a cost management standpoint. And some of the antibiotics that you would make maybe only be used 5, 10, 20 times a year as well. And there's no way that my hospital could afford to keep that in stock. And we think about the DRG reimbursement. So if a patient is admitted for pneumonia, we're going to get a lump sum of money, whether we use ampicillin or a cephalosporin or maybe your miracle drug as well. So a basic DRG, and I know there's exceptions to that. Can you just kind of walk us through what your solution would look like for that type of patient that probably is going to be resistant? You know, they've got COPD and they've been in the ICU for 3 days already. They're not getting better. You know, it's drug-resistant antibiotic. What would the solution look like from a reimbursement model?
Well, I think it's important to look at the big picture. So yes, there's a DRG, and I do believe that we need to reform reimbursement. We can look at using NTAP as an example. That's already a framework in place, and we can make reforms to it so that antimicrobials are better suited for use in the NTAP construct. However, we have to look at what does it cost to have that patient hospitalized for an extended period of time. I can tell you that every day a patient is in a hospital, not getting the care that they need, further deteriorating, costs the hospital and costs healthcare much more than
probably
it would
$5,000 or
be.
$10,000 a day, literally.
Exactly, and so we have to really consider that the products that we have developed, that we have made available, or we're making available to patients, are curative. Right? This is invaluable.
Right. I appreciate the answer and be respectful. I need to move on. I do appreciate everybody coming to your testimonies today. I need to go to another hearing. I'd like to come back and circle back about how do hospitals share that particular drug. Not all small hospitals could keep every one of those in stock, but how do we better share those as well, and so that Tufts can get it tomorrow, but also Great Bend Regional Hospital can get it tomorrow as well. So thank you so much, Chairman.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Marshall, and again, thank you